to the Psychohealthology Summit 2018. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Dr. Eva Detko, and my guest for this session is Dr. Alex Loy. Dr. Alex is a best-selling author and founder of the Revolutionary Healing Codes technique, which is, of course, the subject of this interview. With a PhD in psychology and a doctorate in naturopathic medicine, Dr. Alex combines proven psychology, medicinal science, energy medicine, and spiritual principles to help you reduce stress, identify and heal the root causes of emotional and physical problems, and remove negative beliefs and barriers that hold you back from happiness and success. Dr. Alex has appeared on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and PBS, and his methods have been featured in outlets such as People, Time, USA Today, and Oprah.com. So Dr. Alex, welcome to the Psychohealthology Summit. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Dr. Eva, I'm delighted to be here, honored to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited about what you're about to share. This is methodology that you have developed yourself, and I actually know that there is a bit of a story behind it. So I was wondering whether you'd be okay to open up with that, because I think that's going to set the scene nicely for what we're about to talk about. So if you're okay to share it, then that would be great.
Sure. I'll be happy to do that. It's very personal to me. My wife and I got married in 1986. And I guess like most people, we believed that our life would be happily ever after, with the picket fence and 3 kids and a Labrador retriever and all that sort of thing. And about a year and a half to 2 years later, everything kind of came crashing down. And after visiting 3 doctors, we discovered that my wife was depressed, clinically depressed. The doctor, I'll never forget it. He said, "This is the big bad bear of depression, major general depression, and there's no cure. But the good news is we can manage it with medications." And Dr. Eva, we tried that. We tried managing it with medications. That was before either one of my doctorates. So we didn't know what we were doing. So we tried it and did not work for her at all. In fact, the side effects made it worse. So we started on a 12-year search, had no idea it'd be 12 years. If we had known it'd be 12 years, we might not have done it. I'm not sure. But it ended up being a 12-year search to try to find a solution to her depression, because neither one of us believed that she was supposed to go through her life like that with, no joy, no happiness, every day just kind of clawing your way through the day. And so that's when I went back to graduate school to try to become an expert in depression. And in addition to that, I traveled all over the world. Anybody that had some new thing, Dr. Eva, for depression, I went. Okay. And we figured up one time we had spent over $100,000 out of pocket just trying things, from other people. And some of them helped, some were for a while. And a lot of the people were wonderful people, but it never was a solution for her. And Dr. Eva, the thing that probably sticks in my mind the most is my wife was reading a book on depression that was sort of a psychiatrist handbook at that time. And in the back of it, there was a depression test, and she took it. And she had told me, it's fine for you to read any of these books too. It's fine for you to see what I underlined and that, and us talk about it, that sort of thing. So I was looking at how she took this test, and I was shocked because she scored in the suicidal range. And I mean, I knew things were bad, but I'd never even considered anything like that. And so I ran to her. She was in a different part of the house. And I ran to her and I said, Hope, you answered these questions wrong. And she said, what are you talking about? And I pointed to one of the questions, Dr. Eva, that said, every day I think about wanting to die. And she put always, 100%, every day. Agreed. And so I said, you answered that wrong. And she looked at it and started crying and said, no, I didn't. I every day I think about how much I would like to die because the pain would be over. But she said, I'm too big of a chicken to ever do anything about it. But I feel that way all the time. Well, boy, Dr. Eva, that took me to another level because I didn't know things were that bad. So time continued. And anyway, fast forward 12 years. I was in Los Angeles at a workshop, was at the airport getting ready to come home. My cell phone rang. It was Hope. But she wasn't saying anything. And so I was like, Hope, are you there? Hope? And the connection was good. You know, the seconds were counting off, but she wasn't saying anything. And come to find out, she was horribly depressed. She was sitting on the floor in the corner of our bedroom in her nightgown with a blanket pulled over her head, weeping, where she'd been all night long, paralyzed. And so I prayed for her, talked to her, you know, honey, I love you so much. I'm on the way home. We're going to find a solution to this. We're not going to give up. I doubt any of that did any good. But then the plane took off and I started praying for her again. Only something happened that had never happened to me before, and it's never happened to me since. I still don't know what to call it. A vision, a download, a period of enlightenment. I don't know. But I saw in my mind's eye the blueprint of a healing system that I'd never seen, heard about, or studied. And by that time, I had 2 doctorates, had been traveling all over the world, had a pretty nice private practice, that sort of thing. So for 3 hours, I took dictation, basically, and got home, did it on Hope. Her depression was gone in 45 minutes. Took it into my private practice on Monday. The same thing started happening there. Only even more than that, people who had cancer were coming in telling me their cancer was gone. People with MS, people with diabetes, people with anxiety. It was incredible. I mean, you came into my office during that time, and it was very common to see people jumping up and down, laughing almost hysterically, crying for joy. It was a wonderful time. And so after a while, I walked away from my counseling practice, started the Healing Codes out of my basement, and now we're 17 years later, and we're in 50 states, 167 countries, and counting.
Wow, it is an incredible story indeed, and just can't imagine how much resilience it actually took to just persevere all those years. But then, of course, eventually you got a great result, and obviously the vision that you're referring to is exactly with the system, to do with the system that you have developed, that you already mentioned, the Healing Codes, which I will obviously want to go into in a minute. But I actually want to ask you something else first. In your book, you talk about the 7 secrets to health. So are you okay to just, before we talk more about the Healing Codes, are you okay to just tell everybody what those 7 secrets are?
Yeah, sure. Where that came from is when I finally started shifted from counseling and therapy to the healing codes. Everyone that started with me had a learning curve. Everybody's heard of acupuncture points, but this wasn't acupuncture points. Most people have heard of, in alternative anyway, have heard of chakras or Reiki or that sort of thing, but this is not that. So this was something brand new that no one had ever heard of, that was sort of weird, sort of different, And so every person that came to me, I sort of had to educate them a little bit for them to become comfortable with what this is and how it works. So the 7 secrets were sort of my teaching thing for people that came to us. And the first one is that there's one source of illness and disease, and that's stress. And it's amazing to me that even the United States federal government, that doesn't have an alternative bone in their body, on their website, the Center for Disease Control website, says, actually, they've upped it. A few years ago, they said 85% of all illness and disease is linked to stress. Recently, they've upped it, and now they're saying over 90% of illness and disease is related to stress. So that's the first secret. And it's not a secret. I mean, we've known this for 30 years, but people don't think of it that way. They get cancer, and they think, well, what caused my cancer? And if the doctor tells them stress, likely their response is, okay, yeah, stress, but what caused my cancer? Because they don't really, it's like we assume stress, but we don't really think of it as the source, but it is. And the reason is that the instant you go into stress, the very first thing that gets turned off in your body is your immune system, because it's the biggest utilizer of energy. So with your immune system turned off or down, that's the only way you can get sick. So, and stress is what does that. The second secret is that stress is not caused by your external circumstances. And everybody thinks stress is caused by their external circumstances. Let me prove it to you if you're watching this. I don't have to prove this to Dr. Eva, but if you're watching this, let me prove it to you. If you have 2 people side by side in rush hour traffic, okay, wherever you live, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. We have rush hour traffic here too. Picture that, 2 people side by side in rush hour traffic. One of them is going into road rage. You can see the veins popping in their neck and stuff. Their blood pressure's going sky high. The person right next to them is cool as a cucumber. They're singing along with the radio, talking on the phone. Hey, honey, how you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm in traffic. I'll be home in a few minutes. Start singing to the radio again. Well, if stress were caused by external circumstances, that would mean that everyone in those same circumstances would become stressed. But that's not at all true. So number 2 is that stress is caused by internal circumstances, not external circumstances. Number 3 is that your unconscious mind is the control mechanism for those internal issues and stress. I call it the spiritual heart, but psychology calls it the unconscious, subconscious, etc. So it's not your conscious mind. So just thinking, I don't want to be stressed, or think positive thoughts instead of negative won't work, because your conscious mind is not the control. Your unconscious is. So that's where something has to change. The fourth one is talking about the human hard drive, that just like you can get a virus on your computer hard drive, you can get a virus in your human hard drive. And if you do, it causes the same kind of problems it causes on your computer. You quit working right. The fifth one is that you do have an antivirus program. Just like if you put an antivirus program, Norton or whatever, on your computer, and that sounds good, and it is, but the problem is a lot of times for a lot of people, your antivirus program is actually what's making you sick. In other words, it's malfunctioning. And so what in the world do you do about that? The sixth secret is it's all about what you believe. And when I say that, I primarily mean what you believe about you. Okay? Are you a good person? Are you a person of worth? Do you deserve happiness and health and success and, that sort of things? Because typically whatever you believe way down deep about you is what's going to happen. And unfortunately, most people believe negative things about themselves. Now, they'll answer positive all day long. How are you doing? Oh, I'm great. Whether you really are or not. And I used to do that too. And most people do that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when the door is locked and no one will hear, and you ask yourself the question, am I a good person? Am I worthy of happiness, health, success? What are those answers? Not the answers you would tell anyone else necessarily. In fact, there's a research that says about 85% of women have a secret that they will never tell a living soul. Well, that secret is about what they believe about themselves. And men have it too. They just haven't done that research yet. And then the last secret is if your head and heart conflict, which happens all the time, your heart wins every time because it's 1,000,000 times more powerful than your head or your conscious thinking. So you've got to fix the heart. You've got to fix what's in the unconscious. And so you got to have a tool that can do that. So that's sort of an overview of the 7 secrets.
Awesome. Great. Well, it makes absolutely perfect sense to me, and I'm hoping it makes perfect sense to everybody else. So talking about the tools and methods, tell us more about the healing code. So what is it and how it can actually benefit people with autoimmunity, for instance?
Sure. The healing code is the discovery of 4 healing centers on the body and how to turn them on or activate them that, as best as I can tell, has never been discovered before. The first one is right here. It's where your eyebrows would grow together. If they grew together, I call that the bridge, above the bridge of the nose. The second one is where your Adam's apple is. Now, if you're a lady and can't feel your Adam's apple, it's just about 2/3 of the way up your throat. The third one is called the jaw, and it's on the back bottom corner of the jawbone on both sides of the head, about the size of an American silver dollar. We don't see many of those anymore, but an old American silver dollar, if you put your fingers together like this, it's about that size, okay? And the last one is called the temple. It's not actually on the temple, but if you aim at the temple, you'll get it because it's real close to the temple. You start at the temple, go a 1/2 inch up and a 1/2 inch back. That's where it is. And you activate the healing centers with the tips of your fingers. You pretend like they're little flashlights. And you don't touch the body. You activate them from about 2 to 3 inches away. It's the same principle as a spark plug. The arc is actually more powerful than if they were touching, okay? The Discovery Channel did a special a few years ago where they photographed energy coming out of the body, and it does all the time, 24/7, even when you're sleeping. The place it comes out the very most, and they photograph this, are the tips of your fingers. So to do a healing code, you point your fingertips of your two hands on those healing centers from about 2 to 3 inches away. And if you want to try this at home, you can try it right now. A code that I call it the universal code. You can use this code for anything, for anybody. It's very simple. You just go in order: bridge, Adam's apple, jaws, temple. 30 seconds on each. So 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. So that's 2 minutes. And then repeat that 2 more times for a total of 6 minutes. Now, before you do that, I would identify, okay, what do I want to work on? And let's say you want to work on, when I discovered the healing codes, I had really bad acid reflux. Okay. So let's say I wanted to work on my acid reflux with a healing code, which I did. And I haven't had acid reflux since. Well, one time, but that's another story. So what would I do? I would say, okay, what is the biggest negative emotion I have related to my acid reflux? And for me, it was fear. I was afraid I was going to get cancer of the esophagus. Okay. So what you do the code on is the fear related to the acid reflux, not the acid reflux itself. And then when the fear goes away and you're not afraid anymore and you feel that, I'm really not, I don't feel any fear at all, then you can do a code on the acid reflux itself until it goes away. Now, my wife's was not fear, it was sadness, of course, depression. It can be anything. It can be anger, your boss fired you, and so your issue is really career and financial, and you're angry, all right? The way you work on that is working on the anger related to being fired until you're not angry anymore. And then you work on the issue itself, my boss firing me, etc. But usually when the anger's gone, when the fear's gone, when the sadness is gone, the issue's either going to be gone or already a whole lot better by that time. So, a healing code can be any combination of those centers and your two hands. So there's different codes for different issues, but that first one I showed you, you can use for anything, for anybody.
So on that basis, as you said, somebody could use this on their, say, autoimmune symptoms, but of course we want the emotion associated with the symptom. That's the key element first, and then perhaps after that we can do it on the symptom itself. Correct?
That's right. That's correct. And sort of, if you want to go a little bit deeper, then let's use my acid reflux again. And I was afraid I was going to get cancer. Once I'm not afraid of getting cancer from the acid reflux, instead of working on the symptom, I can say, okay, what's another big fear memory from my life? The same emotion. And it may be when I was 10 years old and something happened. Okay, work on that memory, that 10-year-old memory that still has fear in it. And then when that one no longer has any negative fear charge, find another big fear memory of your life until you don't have any fear memories that still bother you. There's no fear left. And then work on the symptoms. So you can do it either way. You can go straight from the emotion of the problem to the symptom, or you can go from the emotion of the problem to other emotions that are the same or similar throughout your life, and then to the symptom. Either one will work.
And so this is basically, not so much a psychosensory method, because we're not actually touching the body, but obviously there's an energetic connection here, isn't there? And I know, because I read it somewhere, that actually you used HRV to validate it. Is that right? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The first, I was already collecting HRV data related to a therapy I was using that was primarily acupuncture points and meridians.
Actually, can I just say, maybe we should actually probably explain what HRV is, just in case people may not be familiar.
Sure. HRV stands for heart rate variability. Heart rate variability has been the number one standard medical test in mainstream medicine for measuring stress for at least 35 years now. It's in every hospital, usually in the emergency room. When you go in there and you see someone and they're hooked up to machines and you've got several numbers on the screen that are, slightly changing. Typically, one of those is heart rate variability. Another one is oxygen. Another one is pulse rate. Another one could be some kind of EEG or EKG. But typically, one of them is heart rate variability, because if you get too stressed, then they need to take action. So it's the medical test for stress.
Yeah. Okay. So, right. So, and then you actually took those measurements specifically to evaluate the validity of the healing codes. Is that right?
Right. For about a year and a half, I would hook someone up to the heart rate variability testing equipment to get a baseline. Then I would have them do a healing code. Take 6 minutes. Then I would do another heart rate variability, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was well over 80% of people who had been in clinical stress after one code, 6 minutes, were now in balance, in harmony, what you might call physiological peace.
In terms of the changes being permanent and having the sort of more permanent results, say from the point of view of physical health and symptoms, what sort of frequency, presumably this needs to be obviously done over a period of time regularly. Obviously just 6 minutes is not going to be enough to get somebody out of poor state of health. So what would you say sort of on I know everybody's different. It's really, really not easy to answer this question, but say somebody with autoimmune symptoms, if they were to use it every day for a period of time, what sort of period of time are we talking to get get the benefit, to feel that they're actually improving and getting better?
The general rule, and there's lots of exceptions to the general rule, but the general rule is the more physical something is, the longer it takes, and the worse it is physically, the longer it takes. Things that are just emotional, someone has anxiety, but their physical health is great, that can turn around in a day or a week, or, for sure 2 or 3 weeks. And that's what I was seeing in my private practice in the early days. Autoimmune, the two biggest categories of people who've come to us over the years are people with anxiety and depression, and number 2, autoimmune. And autoimmune, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to have healing crises as part of the healing. You can have cancer and be really, really healthy outside of that tumor. But with autoimmune, virtually every cell in your body's compromised. So when autoimmune starts to heal, these closed cells start opening up, sometimes for the first time in years, and they're releasing mercury and pesticides and all sorts of chemicals and poisons like that. And when those things hit your bloodstream, you're going to feel bad. I had one client who owned the largest travel agency in the United States, and she got severe autoimmune and was bedridden. And I started working with her, and for 6 months, she felt worse. And she was having all this detox. And I mean, it was terrible. And I mean, sometimes she would call me crying. It was just so painful. But then she hit 6 months and woke up one day, and the clouds had parted and there was blue skies and sunshine. And she felt wonderful. She called me and said, I can't ever remember feeling this good in my life. But she had 6 months of detox from the codes before she got to that. Now, autoimmune is the most extreme for that. Other problems, the detox is usually not anywhere near that bad, and many things don't have any detox at all. But since you mentioned autoimmune, that kind of comes with the territory with autoimmune.
It's very, very interesting, because there's obviously so many facets and factors and things to get right with autoimmune healing. That's a very interesting that you've observed that. So, and you mentioned actually mentioned briefly pain. Do you have a specific healing code to deal with pain?
Okay, let me set this up just a little bit. The healing codes, the day that I had that, whatever it was, vision on the airplane, was April 15th, 2001. On April 15th, 2016, 15 years later to the day, I woke up in the middle of the night with raging acid reflux, which I had not had since I healed that in 15 years, right after the discovery of the healing codes. Hadn't had it, I guess it took a few weeks with the healing codes, but once that happened, I'd not had it since, almost 15 years. And I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm just on fire, and nothing helps. I did a healing code on it, didn't knock it out. I drank some really cold milk, which sometimes helps with that. Everything I could think of, nothing worked. Okay. So I just started, I closed my eyes, tried to calm down, and I started praying. And I did not have a vision. I've never had anything again like I had on that airplane. But I felt like I was supposed to put my hands in certain places in a certain order. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, the acid reflux was gone. And so I, turned the light on, reached for a pen and a pencil, wrote it down because I knew I'd forget it. And then in the morning, I got that back out and I started testing. Okay. And the testing, my testing at least, was that I call it the Healing Code 2. And my testing was that the Healing Code 2 was about 50% more powerful than the original Healing Code. So I guess it was, so after testing it for a year and then about another almost a year, we released the Healing Code 2. So let me give you something. And the thing I love about the Healing Code 2 is it's even more simple than the Healing Code. So you'd ask about pain. If you're experiencing some kind of pain, here's something you can do that usually works really great. And it's from the Healing Code 2. In the back of your head, and I doubt you can see this very well on me, but right there on me, and if you go to the back of your head, right in the middle of the back of your head where your hard skull is, and then very slowly come down right in the middle until you reach the soft part under the hard part of your skull, okay? Where that soft spot is, right at the base of your skull, right in the middle of the back of your head, your brainstem is behind there, okay? Your brainstem is basically your unconscious mind. Everything runs through the brainstem. It's incredible. So that's the first spot. The second spot is, you remember the bridge position from the Healing Codes where your eyebrows would grow together if they grew together. If you go about an inch higher than that, behind there is your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex, for practical purposes and the things that it's connected to, is your conscious mind. Okay, so unconscious mind, conscious mind. All right? So here's all you have to do. Okay, you're having some pain, whether physical or emotional. All right, take your left hand, start with your left hand, and stimulate the brainstem. Now, you can do that by gently massaging that area with 2 or 3 fingers. If it hurts, you're doing it too hard. Should not hurt at all. Gently massaging, or you can just put your palm over that spot, okay? And at the same time, with your right hand, either gently massage or put your palm over your prefrontal cortex. I am so sorry. So with left hand, brainstem, right hand, prefrontal cortex, and you stay in that position, just relax for 30 seconds. And then at the end of 30 seconds, you reverse. Right hand prefrontal cortex, left hand brainstem for another 30 seconds. So 1 minute, and that's it. Okay, so before you do it, I would say, okay, my physical or emotional pain is at a 7 or it's at an 8 or wherever it is, okay? And identify the biggest negative emotion you have related to that. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's irritation. Maybe it's fear that I've got some health thing wrong with me that I don't know what it is. Whatever the negative emotion is, identify that, rate it 0 to 10, just like you did with the Healing Code. I would say a little prayer from your heart about it healing, or a request of your heart if you don't believe in prayer. And then 30 seconds. At the end of a minute, see where that 0 to 10 is. If it's not below a 1, go another minute. 30 seconds. See where you are. If it's not below a 1, go another minute. 30 seconds. You're activating the control mechanisms of your un- and subconscious mind and conscious mind with the prayer and intention of healing the source of that. And those are the mechanisms that can heal that pain. You may have heard, if you're watching this, that pain is not really what we think it is. Pain is a signal from the brain. That's what pain is, okay? They can put in a nerve block so that the signal from the brain can't get to your elbow, and you'll no longer feel any elbow pain. And they haven't done anything to your elbow. They've just blocked the nerve signal of the brain telling the elbow to hurt. All right. So the pain's really in your brain. It's not in your elbow. So you are activating the mechanisms that control all pain. And it will work. Now, I'm not saying, if you've got physical pain that you've had for 10 years, that in a minute it's going to go away. There's a good chance in a minute it'll go down. But if you use this a few minutes a day, every day, I'm telling you the chances are really good that it's going to go away or at least get significantly better. So that's kind of a healing code 2 that is so simple. It's like third grade simple. You can do it anytime, anywhere, and it works great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But it's so often that simple things are very, very powerful and have profound benefits and impact. So this is definitely one of them. That's great. Thank you so much for demonstrating it so well. That's absolutely brilliant and super helpful. So, but there is something else. There is a love code as well. So tell us a little bit more about the love code.
The love code is the most important thing to me that I've ever discovered, ever done, you fill in the blank. The love code saved my life in every way that a life can be saved. And it's not codes. It is a way to live your life that is sort of upside down from what most of the experts teach. What most experts teach is that the way to get what you want in life is to, number 1, decide what you want. Number 2, develop a plan to get it. And number 3, with your willpower, put the plan into action until you get it. And best-selling book after best-selling book have taught that basic thing for 75 years. Well, among those things, going back 75 years, there's a 97% failure rate. And today, just in the very last few years, 3, 4, 5 years, we finally discovered why. That 3-step blueprint is really a blueprint for how to fail. That research is out of Harvard with Dr. Dan Gilbert and his wonderful book, Stumbling into Happiness. The way he puts it, he says, expectations are a happiness killer. And Dr. Bruce Lipton from Stanford Medical School says the odds of trying to achieve something by willpower that you've never been able to achieve before are roughly 1,000,000 to 1. Based on his research. So the love code, to me, is how you can truly become successful and get what you really want in your life. I guess if you boiled it all down to a simple thing, and sometimes it's simple but not easy, it's all about living in love in the present moment and giving up everything else. Sure, I've got things I would like to have happen, like not to have happen. They may happen, they may not. Something else may happen, but I don't have control over all that stuff. But I am choosing to live in the present moment in love as best I can. I'll never do it right, make mistakes all the time. And that's sort of the basis, but I give you the tools to reprogram your mind and heart so that you can do that. It's almost impossible to do if you don't heal some stuff in your unconscious mind or spiritual heart. But once you do, then you can choose that, maybe for the first time in your life. And when you live in love in the present moment, it is... there aren't words to describe it. It's really what all of us want, but few of us ever really get to on a consistent basis.
As you said, it can take a little bit of work to get to that point, for sure. But if people are determined, that's definitely a possibility for anyone, really. So, okay, we talked a little bit about the healing codes, but clearly people may want to know more. So is your website the best resource to learn more about it and perhaps do some courses, get some training, that sort of thing?
Sure. I'll give you two if you're watching this. The first one is completely, everything is free because I believe the love code was too important to keep from anybody because of money. So if you want to go to thelovecodenow.com, there's 16 videos on there that I made that describe exactly how this stuff works, how your brain works, how your heart works, how the stress happens, what has to happen to fix it, how you can live in the present in love. There's downloadable meditations. I call it the heart screen meditation. That's free too. Everything's free. If you want to get more information about the Healing Code or Healing Code 2, that would be my main site, which is dralexanderloyd.com. Lloyd is with one L. And that's our main site, and everything we have is there.
Brilliant. That's great. Well, it's been such a fantastic interview, and you just shared so many wonderful things here. So I really enjoyed talking to you, and I really hope people enjoyed listening and learning. So thank you so much, Dr. Alex. You are so appreciated for your contribution. I just wanted to ask whether there's anything else at all that you wanted to add before we part ways. Final words of wisdom?
Well, the first thing I want to do, Dr. Eva, is thank you for your wonderful work. We need you out there telling people, giving them information. Something can't help you if you don't know about it. And what you're doing out in the world is so very much needed, and it's hard work. And I want to thank you for doing that. And then I guess the last thing I want to share is really three things, and it's the most important thing probably I've said all day. And the reason I say this is because I know there's people watching, there always are, that are like my hope was those 12 years when she was depressed. And the first thing is, it's not your fault. And I don't care what you've done, what you've not done. It is not your fault. And you may need to watch those Love Code videos to really believe that, where I kind of prove it to you. But number one, it's not your fault. Number two, the solution is not trying harder. It's not, okay? Hope heard that 1,000 times when she was depressed, and she was trying as hard as she could. And I believe most people are. That is not the solution. The solution is something that changes how you feel effortlessly. It's not about trying harder. And the third one is no matter where you are now, and remember, hope was not wanting to live anymore. No matter where you are now, I believe with all my heart that you can still get to that place that you dream of and want to be in your life. And for the last 17 years, I've seen person after person after person who never thought that was a possibility for them anymore get there. And you can too. So I guess that's the last thing I'd like to say.
Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful words of encouragement. Yeah, I completely 100% agree. And no matter where you are, there's always a way forward. There's always something you can do to improve your situation. So this is a really, really great message to end on. Dr. Alex, thank you so much once again. You've been absolutely wonderful. And yes, thank you again for everything that you have shared. It's so appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Eva. It's my honor and pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed